Greetings YouTube. In Satanism, there is a wide variety of names and titles that people use for his infernal majesty. Some call him the Prince of Darkness, and some call him Set. Some call him the Dark Lord, and some call him the Devil. Some call him the Dark Force in nature, while others might call him the Great Beast. And of course, any combination of these names is also up for grabs. These and various others are somewhat official-sounding titles. But some folks prefer to identify the dragon by more intimate terms. Some, for example, like to call Set by the name of Master or Father. Or perhaps if they are more in tune with his feminine aspect, they might call him Mistress or Mother. Now there are a few Satanists who have what I consider to be some rather unfair prejudices against the use of such intimate terms. Most of the people who have these prejudices take a much more intellectual approach to Satanism than others, or at least this is what I have observed for myself. Either that, or they're self-worshippers. In this sermon, I would like to voice my thoughts about this particular issue, and to explain why I do not agree with the prejudices against these intimate terms, despite my own intellectual approach to devil worship. Now from what I have observed, many of the people who call the devil their father do so because they experience him as having a paternal influence in their lives. There is a belief among many of the more intellectually inclined Satanists that anybody who experiences him in such a way must come from a fundamentalist Christian upbringing. Furthermore, it is thought that they are unable to break free of their upbringing, and that they simply replace Jehovah with Satan as their religious paternal figure. The reason supposedly being, of course, that they can't handle not having one. These things are certainly true of some Father Satanists, but I've never seen any evidence that they are true of all Father Satanists. And I challenge anybody who thinks they have such evidence to produce it. But just for the sake of argument, let's say we have a Father Satanist who fits the above profile exactly. Jimmy was born in a Southern Baptist family and accepted Christianity until he reached his teenage years, when he suddenly realized that Christian theology is all a bunch of hoopla. Figuring that there was no other alternative, Jimmy turned to the Prince of Darkness and became a Satanist. It's still a bit hard for Jimmy to let go of his Christian upbringing, so he finds himself calling Satan Father and using that name in his prayers. He needs to have a spiritual father figure in his life, and as far as he's concerned, the devil fulfills that role well enough. When the world seems to be spinning around him, he feels reassured and empowered while praying to his newfound father. Now there are probably hundreds of kids out there just like Jimmy, who jump into Satanism right out of Christianity without even a moment's thought. And most of these kids do not have the mark. They might manage to convince themselves that Satanism is their true spiritual calling for a year or two. But somewhere down the road, they'll get freaked out by a spooky experience in a ritual and go running right back to Christianity. Or maybe they'll just get bored and decide to try hanging out with some neo-druidic tree huggers for a while. But Jimmy, he's got the mark. He might leave Satanism for a bit and experiment with some other stuff, but he always comes back to his father in the end. He might get lots and lots of flack from other Satanists for acting like a Christian and calling old Snaky his papa, but he just can't turn away. Despite his Christian upbringing, he was born a Satanist. And he will die a Satanist too. And one day, Jimmy meets Jane. Jane comes from a family of atheists who never spoke a word about the Bible while she was growing up. She didn't even figure out what a Christian was until she reached the 6th grade. But she had an experience during her 8th grade school year that led her to believe in the Prince of Darkness. And just like Jimmy, she calls him her father. Jane was never a Christian, not once, and she never had a Christian upbringing. Yet she calls old Snaky her papa just like Jimmy does. Jane and Jimmy then get hitched and raise a bunch of little hellions. I like happy endings. So sue me. Anyway, even a person who cannot completely let go of their Christian programming can have the mark of the devil in their bones. And even a person who has never had any Christian programming can feel inclined to see the devil as their father. Everything is relative, kids, and if you remember that, you'll be okay.